For those who don't know who I am Mae or Tyler Knife. I am a totally blind Blizzard content creator.
I will say I remember from when you got into the game that you were like instantly better than I was. Like we did some coachings. Like I don't know what I have to teach you here. And yes, whenever I play APM decks and I'm getting frustrated, I'm like, I could have to be tabbing through this with audio cues.
Sometimes I get really frustrated. Like I didn't see a card in my hand, and if only I could see, like I would have gotten it. And then folks like No Hands or Schmoopy Daddy will be like, Mae. Even sighted people miss this. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
just because you're sighted doesn't mean you see things.
Welcome to episode 548 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, May 28th, 2026, in the evening. Coming to you from Teldrassil, California, it's me, Magesa. From Northrend, Massachusetts, we have Wickagood.
Hi.
From Nomergon, Louisiana, we have special guest Mae.
Howdy.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Crush, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, May, NY Kiwi, Svine, Grizzly Bear, and by our patrons of the week, Nabatian and World 8. You can go to patreon.com/CoinConcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, bonus post-show content, early access to new episodes, and help support the show in the process. And if you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. As you may have noticed, I am not Eloise. Eloise has a family situation that she is dealing with this week, but we are very excited to have on our special guest, Mae. Welcome. Thank you for coming on. And you know what? It's been long enough since we did this interview and then Life and Ladder, or Life and Ladder and then interview.
I think we do interview and then Life and Ladder. I think we want to introduce our guests before we start talking about our nonsense.
Yes. Mae, for people who might not know you, can you give us a little background of how you got into Hearthstone and what you do on the scene?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. For those who don't know who I am Mae or Tyler Knife. I am a totally blind Blizzard content creator. I started playing Hearthstone, 2 years ago now? How time flies. Right at the end of Badlands, when a lot of people were playing Excavate Rogue, and there was the really cool Reno Priest. Absolutely love that deck. I was actually introduced to the game by a friend of mine. Some might have heard of him. His name was Super Blind Man, or Brandon Cole. He'd been trying to get me to play Hearthstone for a number of years. And at the time, I was like, probably not my jam. I was mostly playing some action RPGs and other card games like Flesh and Blood. And Hearthstone didn't really sound super appealing. But then after 6 months after the release of Diablo 4, I put in roughly about 2,500 hours into the game and had burned myself out, but needed something to continue to play. And so I finally decided to give Hearthstone a try. Of course, the first 2 weeks of playing, I got my account banned and had to work with Ridiculous Hat to get it unbanned. Turns out, if you spend a lot of money and it's not something you typically do, your bank reports it as fraud. And coming from other card games, I was like, well, if I'm going to be competitively viable, I've got to own all the cards. And so I spent a lot of money. And thankfully, in February of, that would have been 2024, managed to get my account unbanned and haven't looked back since. I play a little bit of Standard these days, a lot of bit of Wild, and some Battlegrounds as well. So, but if you've come across me, you probably know me less for Hearthstone and more for me being annoying about alt text or alternative text descriptions on Twitter for blind and low vision folks, because I'm constantly retweeting folks and saying, where's the alt text? What is this alt text? This alt text is not good. This is how we do good alt text and things of that nature. So we've seen pretty big shift in accessibility in the community in the last 2 years, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, Blue Sky, at least, like, you can have a setting where it'll force you to put in alt text if you put in a picture, which is good because I constantly forget until I try to post and it doesn't let me without. So,
Mhm.
which is, I mean, I'm not expecting Twitter to get any accessibility features ever because, but
No, unfortunately, they laid off their entire accessibility team when the handoff happened. So
It really does make a difference to put alt text. It doesn't need to be long, but it does just the important information in the picture, right? What is it that you're hoping someone would get? And sometimes that can be useful even for sighted folks, just like, what is this picture supposed to be telling me?
yeah, you know, for those who don't know, alternative text is basically a text description of what is contained within an image. Because a blind person like myself, when you're interacting with the content, you come across an image element, you don't see it, right? So what the alternative text does is it provides metadata to the image element to then expose to the screen reader user, or in the event it doesn't load. So say you've got poor bandwidth, you get the text description instead. So, there's a really big difference between picture shows green and red circles for balance changes versus picture depicts a green circle for buffs that contain the following cards, X, Y, and Z, a red circle for cards that are being nerfed, X, Y, and Z. Right. So it's a matter of understanding what you're trying to convey by sharing the image and then being concise when you're describing it, so that way somebody who is blind or low vision is able to really ascertain what you're trying to convey as a part of the image itself.
and that's helpful even for sighted folks because I don't ever know what the art looks like on the buffed cards most of the time. It's like nobody's seen them in months, so it's like, oh, what's that card? I have no idea. And then at least you have the alt text like, oh, okay, that's that card I haven't thought about in 3 months. That's why it's getting buffed. Excellent. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's all, even if you don't necessarily know whether you have people who are visually impaired in your community, like there are lots of people and who are trying to access the internet and playing Hearthstone, and so it's just more inclusive of more people. It does take a little time to get used to remembering to do. Discord's annoying because you can't edit the image once you post it if you forgot, so you have to just be like, oops, alt.
Yeah, I am bad on Discord because it doesn't force me to, and I forget it all the time, and I'm very bad about it. But it is also good, just like sometimes even if you're sighted, you'll look at something like, what am I supposed to be looking at? Like, what are you showing me? And then at least like the alt text will kind of tell you what you're supposed to be looking at, so that it can be helpful too.
I will say I remember from when you got into the game that you were like instantly better than I was. Like we did some coachings. But it was very quickly like, I don't know what I have to teach you here.
Yeah, it was funny because my first month, well, in January, of course, I only got to play for a week or so, and I made it to Diamond 7, and I remember being incredibly disappointed. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm not very good at this game. What is happening? And then I met he's become a really good friend. He wasn't a good friend at the time. He was just a random streamer. But I met Ron Mexico, who's a fellow member of Amber Flight Gaming alongside myself. And I got a couple of coaching lessons from Ron, and he was like, do you realize that it took me 5 years to get legend? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then after the third session, he was like, yeah, so I'm happy to take your money, but also you don't really need coaching, so I don't really know what to tell you. You just need more experience. And then of course I was like, well, I still need coaching. And so I came to the Coin Concede community and figured out that if I become a patron, I can get some coaching. And so I did that. And it's a really great experience because I find even now, 2 years later, and I'm playing, in top 30 pretty regularly in Wild, hearing other people's perspectives and thought processes is incredibly important. To figure out that little extra thing that I'm not doing right, or I'm not understanding, or just another way to conceptualize the game is really great.
Yeah, I was on a THL team for a couple years with Hat and a couple other people, and one of the things that I got from that, and one of the things that I think THL is one thing that THL is Team Hearth League, which is it's like a casual competitive Hearthstone league where you basically you have teams of 5 in various formats, and then you kind of schedule one match a week with somebody on the opposing team, and they add up the points from wins across the team. And one of the things that was really helpful when I was doing that in terms of improving is like you'd have a game where you lost and you wouldn't be able to figure it out, and then you would post a replay, and then everyone else on the team would just pick it apart like turn by turn. Dawn was on our team for a while too, and like there was a few games where like one of us would post it and like, I lost this game but I don't know why, and then like everybody else would just like attack it and go in like, this is what happened here. Maybe this is right, maybe it's not, but this is what you made this decision here. And then 6 turns later, this happened. And it's the kind of thing that you can't even see when you're doing it, but somebody who has the ability, and like, you know, I mean, I'm autistic, had also, you know, I know he's neurodivergent, and he's also the kind of person who can go through and kind of break this all down like that. And like, when you have a couple people who are inclined to do that and then point out, like, not even necessarily like you did any, sometimes it was just like, there's nothing you could have done. Like maybe you could have done this differently, but this game was lost on this turn and it had nothing to do with you. And sometimes it was like, oh yeah, you made this decision to do X instead of Y on turn 3, and it snowballed for the rest of the game, and this is why you lost. And then you need to look out for that next time. And like those are the kinds of things that even in a live coaching session you don't always get. Like looking at a replay, sometimes if somebody's really good at analyzing a replay, like those kinds of things are invaluable to be able to take lessons from it if you're willing to learn. And not everyone's. Sometimes people are just like and like and that it's not all that helpful.
Yeah.
I completely lost to RNG. That's the one.
Yeah.
Even I say that sometimes, but it's usually not true. Usually there's like little micro decisions that were made throughout the game where like if you would have done something slightly differently, pick this discover option instead of that discover option, you know.
Yeah.
Like little adjustments here and there.
Yeah, or there's like some sort of like a micro ordering mistake that you made, and then it just like led you to be like slightly behind for like multiple turns, and you don't see it because you're just looking at what's happening in real time. And then somebody who's actually good at that can look at that and say, no, you messed up bad. But you didn't see it at the time, and you didn't see, and it wasn't the kind of thing where it like you made a mistake, you were immediately punished. You were punished in like tiny increments, like death by 1,000 cuts for the rest of the game. Like those are the kinds of things that are just hard to see if you're trying to look at it yourself sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it can also be if you think that a deck is supposed to be played a certain way and actually that's not how it's supposed to be played, or that's only one of multiple ways that you can play it, then you'll think like, oh, I'm always drawing this deck wrong. And there are some decks that are easy to draw upside down, but there's other decks where like you have a certain idea of what the curve is that you need, but when you don't draw that, you don't know what you're supposed to do in the other situations. I had that with the Fire and Rage Warrior from a few years ago. It was like a good deck, but I couldn't get results with it. I was up on a trip to see my mother-in-law, and I was just like sitting in the hotel room with my now husband being like, we should go. And I'm like, no, I have to figure out this deck. What's going on? It was because it turned out, I eventually figured out, in part from help from other people, that there was like 3 different game plans in this deck, and you had to really be flexible depending on what order you drew it in. And I was only seeing one of them, so I was thinking that I just had really bad draw RNG all the time. Luck is streaky. Sometimes you do have bad RNG, but if you feel like you always have bad RNG, there might be something going on.
If everyone is the problem and the problem is you, is generally good advice. Yeah.
Yes. But speaking of THL, I want to point out one other thing for THL, which is, for people who might feel a little intimidated by that, they actually really look for people of all different kinds of ranks and skill levels for THL.
That is 150% true. When I joined THL, and it's actually still reflected in my player rating or PR, I was brand new to the game. I had not yet hit Legend. I jumped head first. I was actually on a team with Donkey and a couple of others for a free agent team my first season. You know, I was playing against people like Maxi and McBanterface, and I had no idea what I was doing. But the culture of THL very much is designed around inclusion and helping people grow. For those who may not know, I actually sit on the board. I'm in charge of member inclusion and accessibility advocacy, which really fits me as a totally blind queer trans woman. It's, a lot of fun It's a really great opportunity to get to know some of the pro players, really understand how Conquest functions, open and closed deck lists. The beauty is we also have standard and wild. So,
what's your favorite class, mode, and deck?
ooh.
No pressure.
All right, so I'm going to sort of split this up into two different categories. In terms of standard, my favorite standard class is probably Priest. I was really enthralled by Control Priest when I first started playing the game, and it's sort of become a meme. I like to tease Ron Mexico in particular because he's a big hunter guy, and so I oftentimes will tag him in social media, or when he was still streaming regularly, I would pop in and be like, "Oh, how's my favorite Priest main?" Because he absolutely hated Priest.
Oh, so he's your Sidisi, is what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
This is exactly the dynamic with me and Sidisi, constantly.
And you'd be like, "Mae, you're trolling me again, or not this again. Why are you always lying?" And it's really it's great when we do theory crafting and stuff, because I actually get people to think Ron is a priest main for a little bit, and then it becomes very obvious very quickly that he is most definitely not a priest main. But in Wild, my favorite class is probably right now it's probably sort of an in-between of Paladin and Warrior. I typically am gravitated to decks that are hyper thought intensive. I have ADHD on top of blindness and autism and a whole list of other disabilities. I promise I wasn't trying to treat them like Pokemon. It just kind of happened, and I started catching them all.
They are addictive. They are addictive. Once you get one, you just kind of end up, oh, what else can I get? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And every professional is like, let me add another one of these letter combinations, and it's like, oh, okay, sure. I guess I can be that too. But right now I've been playing quite a bit of Call to Arms Paladin. Last month I climbed all the way to rank 19 with it, and it was a lot of fun. My go-to lately has been an Odin warrior of sorts, which I find to be very therapeutic. Smacking somebody in the face for 100 feels good. Did you say favorite deck? Was that the other?
Yes. I know favorite deck might be hard to choose, but
yeah, really. My favorite deck of Hearthstone up until Yasiel was nerfed a month or two ago was Dungar Druid. Essentially, what you're doing is you had ENR, the Titan, Malagos, +5 spell damage, and Yasiel. And it used to be that if Yasiel was on the board, then your spells cost 1. And so you essentially are building together a pop-off turn to get all of your minions on the board at the same time, and then play your entire deck and kill them. I really enjoy it. It's kind of difficult with my assistive technology to do sometimes, but I really enjoy APM decks. So really pushing my screen reader to max capacity until it breaks. And then I cry because then I lose because I'm like, oh, well, now my assistive technology is not working. But decks like that I find to be a lot of fun. So Questline Demon Hunter, Miracle Rogue, Dungar Druid, things of that nature, where there's 30 different actions that you're trying to do in a turn, plus discovers and choose one, choose thrice, whatever it might be. There's lots of animations. I find that to be exhilarating because you're making snap decisions. The decisions really do matter. It's not just I play all the cards and I win. The order really matters on how you're doing it. And then, using the assistive technology, a lot of it is also reading your hand as the animations are happening and understanding, Sleep Under the Stars has roughly a 7.8 second delay because of the animations, and there's no way to click through them as a screen reader user. And so understanding that, like, if I play this card ahead of, say, Nourish or Swipe or Pendant or, whatever the card might be, I may not be able to get the actions down. So, being really intentional about the order of operations is a lot of fun to me.
It does sound like a speedrunner mentality. Yeah.
Yes. First person to complete Diablo 4 without sighted assistance mentality.
Yeah.
Memorizing exactly how much time it'll take and how, like, wasn't there like one boss where there was a like area of effect and there was no audio cue as to whether you were in the area of effect, so you had to learn like exactly how long it would take to get out of it?
Yeah, Uber Lilith. I actually have a couple of clips on YouTube of doing the boss fight. They essentially designed it so, one, there's no audio effects on any of the AoE, and then secondarily, at the time of launch, there's like 27 different one-shot mechanics throughout the boss fight. And so, like, understanding exact frame manipulation and timing and basing it off of, like, positionality of the audio cues, and it was really, really hard back then. Not so much these days. These days it's a little bit easier. They've really changed how the boss fight happens because they, wanted people to regularly be able to do it. And at the time, less than 1% of the player base at all had done it, let alone blind. That sort of like memorization and precise APM, I find to be like, it keeps my brain engaged, which is like my biggest struggle. Which is so funny that I like Control Priest, because like, as long as I'm on the side of doing the controlling, I enjoy it.
Well, there is a lot of thinking in Control Priest, right? Like, it's not like,
Oh, yeah,
people
for
think
sure.
that, you're just playing one card a turn and taking 75 seconds to do it. But it is like, okay, if I play this now, what are they likely to play? Can I afford to use this now? What are my other answers? What are they likely to do? Am I likely to draw into something? How much do I have left? Like, there's a lot of thinking that you have to do before you're committing an answer to anything. Like, people who
Exactly.
don't play Control don't really understand, like, that there is actually a lot of thought going into it. It's not just like, oh yeah, here's a board, here's a clear. Like, that's not at all how any of this works.
Yeah, it's kind of like the infamous hostage mage in Wild. People oftentimes, like, if you're just looking at Reddit, they would be like, you play your ice block in your solid alibi and then you win. And it's like, well, yes and no. Like, there's a lot of different things that you have to account for as you're working towards the conclusion of the game. And like, if I play this card now, will I have enough time to be able to ultimately pull off the combination or the series or the sequence that I need to win the game later? Or like, my biggest thing right now is like, sometimes I will undercommit because I'm like, oh, they can't possibly kill me here. And this is true in standard as well. In the standard meta, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm totally safe, and then I'm not.
Yeah.
And so, like, to your point, like, that sort of micro decision making is really important. I guess it wouldn't even be micro at that point; it's macro.
Yeah, it's more macro than micro even. It's just,
Yeah.
but it's the kind of thing like, okay, if you think it's that easy, go play it. I mean, realistically, that's always my advice for these kinds of decks. Like, if you think it's that easy and it's brain dead, go play it and see all the, if you don't think it's beatable, go play it. You will learn all the ways that people will beat you. And then you just go do that to them.
That works for aggro too. I mean, some aggro decks are not the most thought intensive, but others can be. I think Hat used to talk about it as like compressed decision making. It's really those first few turns matter a lot. Not that they don't in other decks, but sort of especially, like, it's which green card are you playing in what order? Where are you sending those attacks? Sometimes you do need to trade. Are you recognizing those moments and what to trade into? But for any deck, I mean, I've even played a little bit of Blood DK for this reason, because it feels like they always have the clear, or it feels like Threads is always insane. And, Edel's telling me, like, you don't see when the Threads doesn't clear because I don't play it. So I played it and I'm like, yes, okay. They don't see when Threads doesn't clear and it's just sitting in your hand awkwardly. So not everyone has the collection to do that easily. But if you can play a deck that you're frustrated by, so either the deck really can't lose and then you'll be on a win streak and that's great, or more likely the deck can lose and you will find out how. And you can especially pay attention when you run into a matchup that is the matchup that you like to play and are having trouble with. Now you'll be able to see what your opponents do to win that matchup and kind of learn from your opponents who are playing the same deck as you.
I mean, anytime that I've gotten Legend with Rogue has been because I played a deck and I'm like, it can't possibly be that broken, and it sure was. And that's the only times that I've ever gotten Legend with Rogue, is when it's been that broken. Because usually I'm playing it like, oh, let me figure out how it loses, and it doesn't, and then I get to Legend with it. That's
so that's like the worst case scenario when you do stuff like that. And yes, whenever I play APM decks and I'm getting frustrated, I'm like, I could have to be tabbing through this with audio cues.
Yeah.
And choosing my targets that way and not being able to see when the animation's about to be done, and still playing this APM deck. So it's very impressive. I mean, I sometimes enjoy APM decks because it is exciting. It gets that like ADHD focus going, but it can take sometimes a little bit of practice to know what are your lines so that you don't just kind of panic at the rope.
It's so funny sometimes because, like, when I'm streaming and I rope out, sometimes I get really frustrated because I'm like, if only I didn't see a card in my hand, and if only I could see, like, I would have gotten it. And then folks like No Hands or Schmoopy Daddy will be like, Mae, even sighted people miss this. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're playing it incredible. Like, quit being so hard on yourself. What are you doing? And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, you're right. But also, like, if only.
Yeah, it's easy to do that, but I can confirm I will sometimes be like, oh, I had this card in my hand. Shoot.
Just because you're sighted doesn't mean you see things.
Yeah, and that's a good reminder, too.
I took a whole class called Visual Thinking in college, and there was like a whole section about like when sighted people do not see things.
Yeah. It's called ADHD.
There's a lot of research on that. So, is there anything in particular that you have going on right now that you want people to know about?
Yeah, one thing that is coming up on Team Hearth League, or THL, as we were talking about earlier, is gearing up for our annual Pride Month 24-hour stream. More information will be coming on the date and the time and the folks who are participating in that. But essentially, every year we raise money for different LGBTQ organizations. A couple of years ago, it was the Trevor Project. This last year, it was Trans Lifeline. I believe this year is also going to be Trans Lifeline. But if you're interested in giving back to a good cause, particularly in today's day and age, we usually have a wide variety of streamers participating. In the past, we've had folks like OT Zexia, Ron Mexico, like Banterface, Schmoopy Daddy, Baby Bear, Papa, all sorts of different folks usually participate in the 24-hour streamathon. So definitely keep an ear out for that if you want to support a good cause.
I will put a link in the show notes when we have more information. And where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, for sure. You can find me on Blue Sky, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube at Tylenife. That is TYLENIPHE. Or annoying people in all of the Hearthstone Discords. All of them.
I will also put those links in the show notes. We appreciate having you here, keeping us honest. All right. Well, life and ladder. Part of the story of having Mae on is that after we recorded last week, we raid someone with our live stream. So we raided Mae. And often we kind of log out fairly quickly because we're tired. We just recorded the show. But we were chatting and then looking over at the stream going, wait a minute, what is Mae playing? Is that Quest Priest?
I think she was playing against a Quest Priest first. And we're like, what is happening?
Oh, yes. First, you were playing Shadow Priest. So I was interested. Yeah. And then we realized, wait, your opponent is a Quest Priest. What is happening? So we stop everything and we're like, what's going on?
Oh, we should specify Lost City of Ungoro Quest Priest. Like the new Quest Priest.
Yes. The new Quest Priest, but in Wild, where it turns out it works really well because there's a much higher density of holy spells and shadow spells. And shadow spells you actually want to play, imagine. So we were very intrigued. So Mae played some of that for us. We were able to see some of the Wild decks. And especially given our mood of the show last week, we were like, well, this is a great thing to try. So Wicked, you went 20 games before you got a loss?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I started at 5x because it's been a while since I played Wild. But I played about 20 games before I lost a game. So I have played 62 games with an 80% win rate with this deck. I've climbed up to, I think I'm at Plat 1 right now from nothing with a 5-star multiplier to start off with. And it is over the weekend I was playing it a lot and I was just jamming games. So it's okay, I'll keep playing until I lose. And I just didn't. The general idea is that you're basically just speed running the quest. So you've got things like Renew, which is the 1-mana spell that heals you for 3 and discovers another spell. You've got Nightshade Tea, which is the drink that from the last meta that does 2 damage, kills something, gives you 2 more. Illuminate is freaking broken, which is the 0-mana holy spell that dredges and puts a spell on top of your deck. If it's a spell, it costs 3 less. So there's just a whole bunch of these things. And then once you finish the quest, then you have Raise Dead, which is a 0-mana spell that does 2 or 3 damage to you. I forget. I don't even care at that point how much damage it's doing to me. And puts 2 copies of minions that have died into your hand. You've got Power Chord Synchronize, which puts a copy of a minion on board into your hand. You have an Amulet of Undying, which is a break glass in case of emergency. If all else fails, then you can play it, but you can also just keep cycling that and just get a board back of the quest reward. If you don't remember it ends up, once you've completed both halves, it's an 8/8 with Taunt and Reborn that deals 5 damage to a random enemy when it dies. So you just keep spamming those. Even if the death rattles don't kill them, the 8 damage usually does. And there's just so many of them, unless someone Dirty Rat and devolves them. I think that's the only way that I've really gotten completely locked out. I've gone turned away from the screen and came back and my thing was not in my hand and not on my board, and I was like, what the hell happened? And then I went and looked at oh yeah, somebody called me. But
yeah, importantly, you also have Grave Horrors, which
yes,
I had forgotten existed. They are a 12-mana card that costs 1 less for every spell you've cast this game. They're a 7/8 taunt, I think, so they cost 0, and you can give them Reborn with a 0-mana shadow spell that gives all undead you play this turn Reborn.
Yeah. Undying Allies you run one copy of, and sometimes you just throw that out because it's a shadow spell that costs 0 and you don't care that you're not getting the value out of it.
And you have the Forge spell that gets you a copy of a minion in your deck, so you can get a bunch, and you can get 2 copies if you forged it. I can't remember the name of anything right now, sorry.
Creation Protocol. Yeah, we've blocked that one out of our brains. Yeah.
So you can have extras, or you can get Valish, who refreshes your mana crystals, so you can play your quest reward on 5 if you are having a good game. That happened to me more than once.
You're running 3 minions. It's Valish, it's a Grave Horror, and it's Handmaiden, which is the 3-mana 3/2 Naga, that if you've cast 3 spells while holding it, you draw 3 cards, which is you do that breathing in this deck. You're gonna cast 3 spells without even having thought about it. So
I used to play that in Naga Priest in Standard, and it was a card that was really good if you had drawn Wig, and not so good if you had not yet drawn the Wig, which unfortunately was the rest of the deck as well. Yeah. But I still loved that deck. I played, when we'll talk about this more in explanations, but I went to HS Guru's Wild Meta tab and just played 1 to 2 games of as many decks as I could today, because my one tutoring student canceled. So I was like, this is unfortunate for the student, but I got to play more decks. So I just jammed a bunch of different wild decks. And I will say, I literally may not hit Legend this month in Standard. I'm close, but I did play some Burn Mage. And I will say, if anyone wants to play, like, if you're playing Standard, Burn Mage is a strong deck. If you want to play Mage, it does not with ley lines. Unfortunately, you should not be playing ley lines in it, but you can just really do a lot of damage. If you liked the kind of like, not like the sort of OTK Nature Shaman so much as like the Nature Shaman where like your ways to deal with the board were also your damage and you were just trying to get in as much burn as possible over like the early and mid game, this deck is kind of like that. You have some elementals that are mostly there to like do a bit of damage and draw you more stuff because you have that 3 mana one with the 2/2/2s Death Rattle draw a spell. Ideally, you put Kalik out, but you don't even need Kalik necessarily. Like, he definitely play him if you got him. He gives all your spells +1 spell damage wherever they are. Definitely play him if you got him, but if you don't have him, don't panic because you still just have a lot of ways to get damage, and you're really just kind of counting how do I do maximum damage. If they're and most of the decks don't have a ton of healing except Priest, of course. So if you're facing Priest, you might want to hold back a little bit until you can kill them all at once if you're not able to kill them early. Like, ideally with Priest, you just kill them first, but if that's clearly not going to happen, then you try to kill them all at once. But most of the time, you're just burning them down. So I do recommend Burn Mage. If I hit Legend, that'll be how. But today I was like, let's try Linessa Paladin. Let's try Onara Shaman versus an opponent who like roped every turn. And I was top decking and they were, and there is a type of person who does this. Goes into Wild with a standard deck. I think because they have a lower MMR in Wild, so they figure they'll win more.
Or they dusted all their wild cards. And they just wanna clear a quest or something. Yeah.
It was standard Egg Warrior, and I had Devolve. And I triangulated Devolve because I could tell that they were an Egg Warrior.
That's amazing.
So I ran them out of stuff. But they also dealt with my, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was a little slow getting my big turn going. And then I had like one big turn. Basically, this deck gets you a Battlecry minion that then turns into a minion from elsewhere in your deck. And it's either like Neptulon or Onara or the Mega Fury Lifesteal Elemental thing, Living Mountain or something like that.
Walking Mountain. Yeah.
Walking Mountain.
Good old Big Shaman.
Good old Big Shaman. So like you have all these things, right? And I made a giant board all at once, and they were running Decimation. And I had too many minions out. So then I'm top decking, they're top decking, but I'm sitting there like, why haven't you conceded? Because you have nothing left, and I still have like 2 Walking Mountains. And I just have to wait till I draw them. So I was sitting there for quite a while, waiting to draw all the things, and waiting for them to run out of torches so that I could kill them. But we did get there. So it was okay. I don't think that's the usual experience of that deck. I think that was... I also tried playing Boar Hunter.
Oh God.
No.
And I had NY Kiwi watching me. So because I wanted to get in the game quickly, I didn't really look at the deck very closely. So it took me a while to get my boar. The boar is basically a quest that doesn't say quest on it, right? If you have 7 Elwyn boars die, then you get this 15 attack weapon that when you attack, it gets rid of all your opponent's mana crystals. So basically you win the game almost certainly when this happens. And the boar hunter has lots of ways to like get and copy beasts, right? And then what I wasn't thinking about, kill your own boars. Duh. But I wasn't really thinking about that. So it took me a while to get my weapons. The second game, I got the weapon quickly and managed to actually really kill them. But luckily, when you have a 4x multiplier, it's really forgiving.
Yeah. I saw somebody on Reddit complaining about that deck today. Like
That deck,
like
that deck is not good.
well, no, they're like, this is broken. Like, why does this sword also destroy my mana crystals? Like, it's already 15 attack. Why does it also destroy my mana crystals? It's like, oh boy, oh buddy, You are 5 years late for that argument. Like, what is happening right now? I will say that you tried a bunch of decks, but did you try the Warlock Hunter quest? Because I ran into that right before the show. The one where you have to fill your hand and then discard it. So I played against that, and they apparently Sir Finley will just empties your hand for a nanosecond. So Sir Finley's Sea Guide is the card that takes your hand, puts it on the bottom of your deck, and then draws. It swaps your hand with the bottom of your deck. So it counts as having emptied your hand for the nanosecond that your hand is empty. The problem is that they did that a turn after I got the quest reward down, and they played it, and I just ignored it and just hit them in the face, and then immediately top decked a Power Chord Synchronize. and then that was the end of the game. But they did get, to their credit, they got the quest to happen. It didn't matter, just as we knew it wouldn't, but they did get it to happen. So whatever achievement they got from that, I hope they got an achievement at least from that happening. But
I will say that Reno Lock list is a wicked kind of deck. I think you would probably enjoy it. It's very, very control oriented. It's probably the premier control deck in the format right now.
That's running that quest?
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, that sounds terrible. I don't even want to do that.
Like, you can wait and use it like old Elucia, right? Where you would use it to prevent them from playing the cards that they want to play at the right moment. Right, in a control deck, rather than like turboing it.
Or I could just quest priest people.
I like that idea better. Let's not contribute to the Reno Lock.
Yeah. I'm basically playing a control deck, but also killing people, which is kind of the best of both worlds. So, anyhow, we're going to talk a lot more in Wild about explanations. If we have gotten your interest even a little bit piqued, and as much as I have occasionally talked some stuff about Wild in the past couple of months, but I have, every couple of years I come back to it and I have a good time. And I think it's been long enough that absence make the heart grow fonder, as it will. But we do have a tiny bit of news that we're going to get to, and then we're going to talk more about how you get into Wild and what you should be looking for, and how you can play Wild without breaking your budget if you happen to dust all your Wild cards, despite us telling you not to. But we're going to talk about a little bit of news first.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
And I really do mean a little. There is not very much, because we are in the calm before the storm right now. In fact, we are so much in the calm before the storm right now that we have gotten teasers for the next expansion. So we have seen a post on socials as of this today when we're recording this, which is Thursday, which is posting, "Are you busy? Come help us watch these cameras and make sure nothing goes awry in the Violet Hold while we prepare something exciting for you all. Share a status report with us in the comments and then stand by for further orders." And it's just a video of like some sort of a security camera, and everything's purple. And we've found out since, because there were apparently bundle codes hidden in the video if you were fast enough to read it or notice it and redeem them, that the name of the next expansion is called Escape from Violet Hold, which we knew that it was going to be like a Prison Break set with Vanessa Van Cleef. They've alluded to that in the Spotlight video and in the Dev Insights video, so we know that that's coming. If you want to read some tea leaves, we just had an event, a 1-week event start this Tuesday. It has an end date, I believe, of Tuesday, June 2nd, and we don't know what the next event is. And I can't remember the last time that we didn't have at least one event running. So one could logically conclude that we're going to find out the next event when they drop the next patch, which is going to have the next expansion announcement next week. Again, nothing's confirmed. They didn't give us a date, but they don't usually go that long from teasing the next expansion anyway. So you can kind of expect that. We did find out one thing that is not going to be in the next patch, and that is support for Hearthstone on 32-bit operating system. When Hearthstone patch 36.0 is live, they say they will no longer support the Hearthstone game client for 32-bit operating systems. Players on 32-bit Windows OS will be unable to launch the game after patch 36.0. So 32-bit Windows, by the way, has not been a thing for quite a while. Windows 11 only comes in 64-bit. So you could actually have a 32-bit version of Windows 10. On Windows 11, you are definitely on 64-bit. If I will actually throw, now that I'm seeing this, I will throw a really nerdy link in the show notes of how you can tell if you are on 32 or 64-bit OS. But if you are in a 32-bit OS, you probably should move to a 64-bit OS for a whole lot of reasons. Not just that Hearthstone's going to stop working. It's something that it's a decision that they made, and it probably makes sense. It's been a while since 32-bit operating systems have been a thing. Everything's kind of moved on to 64-bit. It's hard for them to continue to maintain that for excessively older versions of the operating system. So just do be aware of that. If you are playing on Windows, you may just want to check, because you may be unpleasantly surprised that you're on a 32-bit version and you need to go upgrade. And that's the news. So, like I said, call before the storm. We're likely getting an expansion announcement next week, or if not next week, then soon after. And then we'll have a whole lot of news to talk about. But if you're tired of Standard, why don't we talk about what you could be doing in Wild?
All right. So we kind of thought about this section as either like how to Wild or Wild for Standard players. Also for Wild players, so those of you who are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just figured out this is a mode. We knew, but there might also be some of you listening who have never really opened Wild or haven't opened it for quite some time, who might want to hear about it. We're going to start with just a little bit of like, why play Wild if it's not generally your mode. I think a lot of people find Wild to be very intimidating because there are so many cards, especially if you haven't been playing for a super long time, right? You might not recognize all the cards, or even if you have been playing for a super long time, like Wicked and I, but you haven't been playing Wild for most of that time, you go in and you're like, why are we playing these cards? Like, Imbue Mage is on this list of cards doing well, at least Diamond through Legend in Wild. It's like, well, that was never good in Standard. What's going on? So now I'm sure that the like top Legend meta for Wild is very different than the Diamond through Legend meta for Wild. But just starting with, I think, what's the pitch for giving Wild a try for people who haven't played it much at all or recently?
Yeah, so the biggest selling point of Wild is it's slightly different Hearthstone. For a good bit now, Standard has felt very, I don't want to say stale, but it's been very repetitive in terms of sort of the card design and the implementation strategy. So for example, sometimes you'll hear some of the pro players call it like Curvestone, or the plans are very linear in nature. You draw your Herald card, you play your Herald card. You draw the yellow card, you play the yellow card. For me, what really convinced me, I love Hearthstone. I have spent a lot of hours in Hearthstone. Those who are a part of my community regularly know that I'm very open about my mental health struggles, and Hearthstone has been an escape mechanism for me. At the time that I made the decision to come to Wild, I wasn't ready to let Hearthstone go, but I was incredibly upset when we only nerfed Fizzle. So we're talking pre-rotation a year and a half ago. And I remember I crashed out pretty hard to the point where like Hat reached out to me and was like, hey, is everything all right? Like, you good? At the time, I stumbled into Schmoopy Daddy's stream and figured out, oh, hey, there's this whole other mode, and it is still Hearthstone. Oftentimes people get really nervous about it because, you hear it's really fast combo, or if you don't have something by turn 3, then you're dead, or the amount of cards there prohibit you from being able to play the game if you're just getting into it, so on and so forth. There is some truth to some of the perception. The lethality in Wild is much higher than Standard, but it's not to say that combo reigns supreme. It's just a different way of conceptualizing the game. And so once you get used to some of the play patterns, then you begin to really understand, oh, this is the same game that I have come to love. The only difference is there's a lot more variety, because you're not locked into, between 4 and 6 or 2.5 expansions of playable cards. You've got the entirety of Hearthstone's history. At any given time, there's, anywhere between 20 to 67 viable decks that you can play even at top legend. So there's a wide variety of cards and ways to find fun if you're looking for that spark, that drew you into playing Hearthstone to begin with. That's the pitch.
The other thing that's there the other thing that kind of makes some people nervous is that when you have an Eternal format, you're also still dealing with all of the design mistakes of the past 10 plus years. And, because those cards are still there. And, sometimes those are cards that will rotate out. And I think I've found doing this climb, there are some decks that annoy me. I'm not happy to see Garrett Rogue again whenever I see it. Because I don't really want to just sit there and watch them take 30 game actions while I go to get a Shirley Temple out of the fridge or whatever. But you also don't see the same ones of those constantly, at least at the ranks that I'm playing at, which again is I'm at Plat 1 right now. And certainly I don't think I really started seeing meta decks until probably Platinum, maybe Gold. Because the low ranks in Wild are really just people just I'm just here to clear a quest. There's this deck that I played 2 years ago that I just want to play again for a couple games, and it doesn't really matter if it's viable or not. And that felt to me like a lot of, I felt bad for those people as I was raffle stomping them, but but that's a lot, occasionally you'll have somebody like me who's getting back into it and is playing a meta deck and stomping everybody on the way up, and but those people get out of the way pretty quickly. If you're just hanging out at 5x 6x, you're probably just playing against other people who just have nostalgia for some deck, and it doesn't really matter if it's competitively viable. They just want to play that deck again, and that is a viable way to play at those ranks. You can certainly play in a way that you don't ever escape containment and end up having to play against meta decks if you don't want to.
Yeah, and I mean, the cool thing is even at a 10 star multiplier, occasionally, pretty frequently, particularly if you watch Schmoopy, there's a lot of homebrew decks that people are playing, even in between 2000 and 1000 legend. There's one guy who's regularly 600, and he runs all the watch posts and Ricari Enchanter and Merchant Seller. He runs all these funny cards. Really, really creative deck building. And he's playing Shadow Priest, I might add also. So it's turned into this aggro control obnoxiousness, but it's really cool to kind of see the creativity that people come up with. I mean, for example, I run in my Odin list Hearth in my ETC as an alternative win condition. When I was playing Standard regularly, I can't remember ever intentionally playing Hearth. Maybe if I had literally nothing else to do. But there's a lot of times where, maybe my Odin gets Dirty Ratted, or I accidentally play a Lava Gorger into Objection. And I'm like, oh, well, there goes my win condition. I don't know what to do now. And then I'll just be like, well, time to roll the dice. Let's see what hearth hand we get. And I've won with it, in top 30, doing silly things like that. So
I'm definitely saying there are cards, sometimes we'll think like, oh, if a card wasn't good in standard, there's no way it was good in wild. But that is in fact not true. Because sometimes cards just never had the support in standard. But then there is just such a density of cards in wild that suddenly they have support. I mean, for example, Disco Lock, famously amazing in wild.
Oh, Disco.
We have, it's including some cards that we just got in this new expansion that are not seeing play because there's not enough discard synergy in standard. But it turns out in wild, being able to choose what you discard, even though we don't have the Malchazar's Imp synergy anymore, being able to choose what you discard turns out to be real good when you have the entirety of Hearthstone's history of discard lock.
Yeah, and like Hearthstone in Seed Lock is absolutely transformative. You can do 35 damage to yourself using Apothecary and minions, and then play Hearthstone and go back to full. Finish your Tamsin quest on turn 4. I've done that a couple of times. And so like little things like that are incredible. And it's kind of cool too sometimes because some standard cards are so broken and wild by the time we get them that it causes reworks to old cards. Like, for example, we recently had a nerf to the old Umbra. When a card is played, trigger its death rattle, I think is what the card text was. And so people were combining it with the Egg of Kalos to create a board of 2020s on turn, that'd be turn 4, usually. And that was obnoxious for a little bit. And then Team 5, took a look at it and said, probably not healthy for the game overall. So it's not like, things rotate and then they forget about it forever. We do definitely see some attention. Maybe not as much as some of us would like, but we do see quite a bit of attention to wild and sort of the implications there from standard, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you want it to be an eternal format too. Like, there are times when the wild meta gets very compressed, and then they have to do something to step in. But like at the end of the day, like the idea of an eternal format is that it should be able to go back and play with your old cards. And sometimes it gets splash damage from the changes that are happening in standard, but but even then, like, you don't necessarily want there to be like a huge influx of constant changes to wild, because then you're just like not playing with the same cards anymore.
Yeah, a really good example of splash damage that we're expecting probably sooner than later is the new 3 mana spell for Hunter, Tolver.
Oh, confront the Tolver. Yeah.
Eventually, we know standard is going to get it nerfed. And unfortunately, there's been a couple of new wild decks that really lean on it. So it's been nice to see some new archetypes sort of come into existence. But to your point, like that splash damage does affect the format sometimes. For sure.
We've talked about there's so much diversity of decks. And especially, if you're playing at a lower MMR, I'm sure, I did run into people who were just like, I liked this deck, I'm going to play it the way that it was.
My car's got 2 rods to the hogshead, and that's the way I liked it.
But really, it's a different, it's not a time machine so much as a different mode with different synergies. But that can be a little overwhelming. I think for deck builders, that can be super fun. And it can also be maybe a little overwhelming for people getting into the mode. What I did was I just went to HS Guru's wild meta tab, and there was a lot of options, and you can sort of look at the list. You can also find replays, which I recommend if you haven't seen like a streamer do it or seen opponents do it, or really feel like, oh, I really know these cards and I have a good sense of what this deck is supposed to be doing. Get a sense of what the deck is supposed to be doing, because it's not always completely obvious just from the list. And do as I say, not as I do. Don't just jump into the game like I did with Boar Hunter going, yeah, it's boars. Got it. Playing now.
Were you bored when you did that?
Yeah, a little bit. So you do want to take a look and be like, if you have, especially if you haven't run into the deck or seen it, like what is the game plan here? Sometimes it might be fairly clear, but sometimes not. And sometimes even if it does seem like it's clear, like obviously we're getting the boar weapon out as soon as possible, there might be details that you might just see from playing it, or you might not. Especially if you haven't played a deck like that before. Like Quest Priest, Wicked and I kind of looked at that and were like, okay, we know what's going on with this deck because it's just what we've been trying to do, but it works.
Yeah. I figured out like 70% of it, and then the other 30% I kind of got the hang of it as I went along. But yeah, like even if it's a deck that you think you know, like an archetype that you've played before, it may not play exactly the same in WoW because it has other tools that it wouldn't have had available to it when it was in standard.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it took me a second to realize, oh, these grave horrors, sorry that took a second, in the Quest Priest are actually like real good. And that was in part because I had seen Mae play them and I was like, oh, okay. These can be like almost as impactful, or in some games I actually won with it instead of the quest reward because I got them down like even faster than the quest reward, or I got them all together. So
I do want to emphasize one thing real quick because, like, high key, that priest deck, I really love it. I literally spent probably about 80% of my stream 2 days ago, and I peaked at rank 22 just playing that quest priest because it's so good into decks like Disco Warlock. Because, like, once you drop the quest reward, like, there's not really anything they can do about it. They kill it, it destroys their board. You still have, an 8-1, and then you can, go face and kill them. It's a really fun deck.
They have Reno on curve. That's basically like the Reno hero. That seems to be the only thing. And even then, you have to have gotten rid of the other ones that are in your hand, because you probably have, if you're planning for that, then you probably have another one in your hand that you can just drop afterwards and then keep going.
At one point, we were running a 40 list that included Rodden just for that scenario to replay the quest reward. But we slimmed it down after the Cataclysm expansion was released.
There's just a lot of like clever synergistic things. I played some of the Linessa Libram Paladin. This is like if Libram Paladin were super good because it was also Drunk Paladin. So the way that I came to understand it after, again, do as I say and not as I do, just jumping in and playing with the cards, which if you are that kind of person and you're like, yeah, I am willing to like lose some games while I figure out what in the world is going on in this game, that also does work. That is what I did here, except for when you're at low MMR, it's pretty forgiving. So I didn't actually lose the games. But when you can make your Librams cheap more easily when you also have things like Aldor Attendant, 1 mana, 1/3, Battlecry, reduce the cost of your Librams by 1 this game. And you have more ways to draw. You can stall them with things like Cold Feet, enemy minions cost 5 more next turn. You can also draw your Aldor Attendants with Christology, draw 2 1-attack minions from your deck.
Oh, I forgot about Christology. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so you always get them, right? And you have Light Rays, because why not? You're playing a bunch of Paladin cards. You can draw with Myrmidon after you cast a spell on this minion, draw a card. If only we'd had that in Priest, but also probably we shouldn't have had that in Priest. And then Linessa, turns out, is real good with Librams, especially when you can more quickly get the Librams discounted. So we can make something really big with Linessa, because all of our Librams that buff, right, cast twice. But then Adaptation. 0 mana, adapt a friendly minion, especially if you cast it twice, is very likely to give something Wind Fury. So then you just win if you stuck anything, or it also runs 1 copy of Chillblade Champion, which is a charge minion. I was proud of myself for stopping and going, why is adaptation in this deck? Wait a minute. Wind Fury. I should save this for Wind Fury.
So then you adapted your game plan to that?
I adapted my game plan in the first game with it. It was very good. Yeah, I was like, this is slinging the cards, doing that sort of drunk paladin thing that I missed, but with the Librams, and yeah. It's another example of like the Librams are better here than they ever were in Standard. I mean, they were playable sort of in Standard, but like...
I mean, the Librams were playable the first time, right? You're seeing them with like the old and new Librams. Like the new Librams weren't really good in Standard. The old Librams were just fine in Standard at the time.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, and we are running Libram of Wisdom in this deck, which is, you know, your classic give a minion +1/+1 and death rattle, add a Libram of Wisdom to your hand.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to run the 9-mana one anymore because we have better things to do. We didn't have like Aldor Attendant and like Libram of Clarity at the same time. Like those were things that we didn't have. We just had, you know, Aldor Attendant and Aldor Peacekeeper, which we don't run anymore. And then we would just run all of the Libram that equalities the board and the one that makes the 8/8 and heals you for 8. Like we don't need those anymore because there's better things to do. Because the old Libram Paladin was just like grindy as hell, and just like basically waited for your opponent to lose the will to live, and then you eventually won the game. This doesn't seem to be like that.
Yeah, this one is a lot more tempo oriented. How can I kill them or burst them if I can't, you know, maintain a board? Draw through my deck quickly with Myrmidon, which is a lot of fun. It's probably my like third favorite Paladin deck.
Yeah, tell us about the Call to Arms Paladin that you were mentioning.
Oh, I love... Okay, so it used to be a 40-card list that I absolutely hated. It was a good deck. It was a good deck, but I hated it. That relied on the card Call to Arms. Essentially, you run Lady Liadrin, which is a 2-mana 3/2. If you summon a minion with less attack than this, give it Divine Shield. And then a bunch of 1-drops and 2-drops. Because what Call to Arms does is it's a 4-mana play 2 or less drop minions from your deck. So you would run things like Crab Rider, which is a 1/4 Murloc with Wind Fury, Tanner, the Argent Protector, or not Argent Protector, the Protector, it's a 1/1 with Divine
Protector.
Shield. Righteous, yeah. Essentially, the idea is you pull Liadrin, hopefully, first, and then your other minions all get Divine Shield. In my experience, she always comes last. Unlucky. It is nice when occasionally she comes out first when you play it, and then you play Crusader's Aura, and then you kill them. The old version used to run a secret package as well, in Mysterious Challenger, to play all of your secrets and create maximum disruption. The new version, there's sort of two of them. The one that I prefer, over 150 games, I have I think an 83% win rate with, runs Showdown Beam, which is really powerful.
That's Showdown and Prismatic Beam, two
Correct.
separate cards. Yeah.
Yeah. Showdown being 2 mana, summon 3 3/3s with Rush for both you and your opponent. And then Prismatic Beam is a 7 mana, deal 3 to enemies, including their face now. Thank you, Reverts.
I was so sad when they made that nerf.
That alone wins the game on the spot against a lot of aggro decks, as you drop the 3/3s on their side of the board, and then it discounts your Prismatic Beam, and then you clear it, and you're left with your board, and they were left with nothing, which is really nice. But it also runs Boogie Down, which was reverted on rotation, and a bunch of 1-drop minions that Boogie Down pulls, including Iron Deep Trog, which is a 1 mana 1/2. When your opponent casts a spell, summon an additional Iron Deep Trog. So if you drop this on 1, typically by turn 3 or 4, you've got 7 1/2s on board, which doesn't sound very impressive until you play the new Shattered card to give them all Divine Shield +1 attack, and then you play Crusader's Aura, and suddenly they're dead on turn, 4 or 5. The version that I run also runs 2 Oh My Yogs as additional disruption. So if you time it right, which I've gotten pretty good at, you build your board and then you play the Oh My Yog. Or there's a sword that I cannot remember the name of that's 2 mana.
Sword of the Fallen?
Yes. You swing the sword and it plays a secret from your deck. Well, we only run these 2 secrets and then Redemption, which revives a minion that gets killed. So you're pretty much guaranteed to almost always get Oh My Yog off of it. If you time it, you can make sure to create disruption. They can't play Shield Shatter or Domino Effect or Defile. I hate Defile. Cards like that typically would clear your board. Now they don't. And sometimes they do, silly things like probably the most frequent that I've seen is like they'll play Coin or something like a 0-cost spell. So that way they have more mana. And then it'll play Forbidden Fruit. And now they have no mana. Or one time I played a card into Oh My Yog by accident, and I wasn't thinking about it. And it replaced my deck with a bunch of useless Warlock cards.
Oh, Renounced Darkness. Or no, Announced Darkness, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one that changes it to Warlock, yeah.
It's one of those beautiful things where, you've got this like little disruption that can be super impactful if you're really thinking about like, how can my opponent clear this board if I, go in and develop here? Then it runs some other cards too that are nice, like Weblord, which makes Battlecry cards cost 2 more. Of course, you have your trusty Crab Rider, which is a 1/2, and Peasant, which is a 2/1, draw a card at the beginning of your turn, and Gold Panner, which draws a card at the end of your turn. So you're, churning through your entire deck very quickly, which is great against everything but Hostage Mage, I found. Turns out you don't want to be drawing through your entire deck when your board is constantly being frozen. But yeah, it's probably the second strongest aggro deck in the format right now. And if you're a good pilot, you can very easily, like I said, I've got 150 games on my list, and I've got an 83% win rate. So, and that is in top 30. I also got 11x on EU last month on the last day because I was bored of playing against the same NA folks over and over. So I swapped over to EU and climbed to Legend real quick using the deck, and got 11x there as well, which was nice.
This is basically a murderer's row of every like broken aggro card in the history of the game that looks like nothing. Like you would look at these cards individually and be like, okay, that's fine. And they all just kill you. Iron Deep Trog, actually one of like the most broken cards in the history of the game, though they haven't reverted that. I don't know if either of you know what it used to do, but
I heard it used to retain the stats. Is that what it was?
It summoned a copy of itself.
I wish it did that still.
So you would buff the hell out of it, and then they wouldn't be able to. It would be like you play like a 1-mana buff spell on it. On the turn, it would come down, and it would be like a 3/4 that they wouldn't be able to kill. And they try to kill it a little bit, and it would just make more copies of itself, and it would never go away. Yeah, it was absolutely broken.
I've been known sometimes to suggest reverts to cards that people really don't want to be reverted, like Reno Lone Ranger. I would love it to go back to 1 board space and get rid of dormant minions and locations.
God.
And people are like, yeah, under no circumstances should you be on the balanced team, Mae.
Yeah, that was not a fun time. Like that was, I mean, even I as a dirty control player did not like, that was just like enough. No, we don't need to do that.
You had also alluded to Odin Warrior as being one that you were really enjoying.
Yeah, so there's probably like 5 or 6 decks in my rotation, but Odin is one that is particularly close to my heart. One, because my best friend, who is a top wild player, OTZ or OTZexia, she gave me her list for the deck and taught me some of the lines that I was unfamiliar with. The game plan is fairly simple. There are some more complicated turns occasionally, but the idea is that you put the Ceaseless Expanse on the bottom of your deck, usually either using Xavius Finley or using the Spear of Sapience to, when you draw a card, look at it. If you don't want it, put it at the bottom of your deck, sort of thing. And you can combine that with Lord Polkelt, which orders your card from most expensive to least expensive, so you're guaranteed to always hit Ceaseless on the top. And then you play a Lava Gorger to then gain 100 armor. It was a little better when Ceaseless was at 125. I wish it was still at 125.
See, not all reverts are good.
I know a lot of people disagree with me. They're like, no, 100 is good enough. But I liked that little bit of cushion. But essentially, you gain 100 armor, and then you stall long enough to then drop your Odin and do it again, and then bonk them in the head for 100 damage. Sometimes it can be a little bit more complicated than that, or like I've had a couple of games where, I had to gain 200 armor to not die. The new token questline Demon Hunter using Broxigar's Last Stand and Feast of Souls can pump out something like 250 damage when it's combined with Arana, the fatigue card from Perils in Paradise. And so I've been forced to play like Hearth and then win with Q Block or Hog Druid instead of doing the smack them in the head for 100. But yeah, I mean, the game plan is pretty simple. Control them until you can play Odin, and then do your best to get that OTK where possible, which is, I don't know, I find it to be a lot of fun. It's satisfying, on a day like today where I've got a migraine. I get them pretty frequently. I don't have to think real hard. I play the new 2-mana Crocs spell, gain 10 armor, summon 2 Crocs, and then I play Shield Shatter, and then I play Shield Shatter, and then I play, what is the Earthquake spell called?
Aftershocks?
Aftershocks, yes. I'll play Aftershocks, and then I'll play Sanitize, and then I'll play Odin, and then I win the game. Of course, the deck is not quite that straightforward. Like I said, there's like a lot of different lines that you could take along the way. But then the Hearth in the ETC, in my opinion, I oftentimes will take Hearth out of ETC, even when that's not the correct line. I just want to do it because it's a lot of fun. It adds a little bit of extra variety. And also, nobody ever expects you to play Hearth. So you play Hearth and it's like, what is happening? I did it one time against a Reno warrior that had 40 health. It was really cute. They played Boom Boss, and I only had 4 cards left in deck, and I managed to not draw one of the 3 TNT. I played Hearth, and I got the Tog hand, and I togged. They instantly drew a TNT, and it blew up the ransom. And so they couldn't give me my deck back. And then it was funny because they played Bob, they copied my Tog. They couldn't play it because they didn't have the mana for it. And then the TNT blew up the Tog in their hand. And I was like, yep, there's the win. And so it's become sort of a joke in my community. It's like, oh, Hearth G, like it's done. Like that's, another Hearth win. I don't know. It's little fun things like that, I think, that, really drive me to playing Wild, because, like, you have those moments of laughter where really you shouldn't probably win, but, like, you can somehow do some random nonsense to make it happen anyway, which is nice.
It looks like the top performing list has Rivendare War Rider in the Hearth spot, which is the 6/6 with a death rattle, shuffle the other 3 horsemen into your deck, and then if they've all died, then you win the game. Which also sounds like kind of a similar thing, though I guess that's less resistant to TNT. if you're doing that. But it looks like the other things in ETC are Acidic Swampus, which no surprise that weapons are a thing, and Tight-Lipped Witness, which is the 2/5 undead that says secrets can't be revealed, which I guess is for hostage mage.
Yep, it's your ice block tech.
Yeah. And you probably just play that the turn you're going to kill them because it turns off the ice block and you just kill them through it. So
Exactly. Important note though, it does not shut down objections. If you play it into objection, it will be objected, and then you're sitting there going, well, what do I do now?
you shout no.
Or if they play the Mad Duke and they take it from you, it's like, well,
Right. Yeah.
that was great. But yeah.
If we do have a good point here, I think in chat that like it is lower sample sizes for wild in like the stat sites, so than in standard. So you want to keep that in mind when you're looking at lists. It might be a place where, going into a community where they have wild players can get some advice on like, hey, here's the list that I found. What do people like to play? People are generally, I think, friendly.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on which Discord that you're in, but I think many people.
I mean, that always depends. Yes.
Our Discord does have a wild channel. It's a little bit less wild-like, but when new people come in and are like, "Oh, I have some questions. Do people want to answer them?" They almost get too many answers. People are like, "Oh my gosh, we can info dump. Amazing. Let's info dump."
Yeah. What I would say is like the wild community is very tight knit. Everybody knows everybody, and so that it makes sense because the player base, like at Legend, I think usually NA has like 4,000 Legend players. EU has a little bit more. I think it's usually like 7,000. But as a result, everybody knows everybody, and so people are generally pretty passionate about it and are willing to give advice. Sort of the three places where I always get decks are primarily first other people in the community. So I'll check in with folks like OTZ, who hasn't streamed for a little bit, but I hear rumors maybe they might come back eventually. Schmoopy is a good person to talk to about getting decks. KVLT, Copper Scum, me. I like to give people decks. There's a variety of other wild content creators who are willing to give decks. I think it's hsdecks.net. I think that's it. Or hearthstonedecks.net. Run by Neon31 is a really great resource. You can search by decks that finished in the top 500. Usually there's a pretty good variety sorted by class, which is really nice. So I have like a bookmark where it shows, the top like 10 decks through like the last month or two per class. And sometimes I will get ideas from there. Or if you're really good at using HS Guru, adjusting the filters just right to find those gems amongst the low sample size.
It's Hearthstone-decks.net for those of you who are listening at home. That I haven't been there in a while. I used to use that as my resource when I was playing duels a lot, and they were usually a good resource for duels content. And they still, bless their hearts, have a section for twist decks on the main page. And
R.I.P. to our fallen homies.
Yes.
Dude Paladin 11 Legend, February 22nd, 2025. Yeah.
Yes, I will put more links. I put those links in the show notes, and I'll put links to some like streamers and communities that we've mentioned after the show as well. And I will make sure I do that today. But listener, if you are listening and I didn't do that in the show notes, ping me in the Discord. And I will, or comment on YouTube, and I will see it and I will fix it.
I guess the one thing that we haven't, because we are starting to run a little bit long, but I guess the one question that, given that a lot of our audience is going to be mostly standard players who might be trying to get into wild, like what is a deck that if you against all advice, dusted your wild collection as of rotation, and you want to try to get into this without spending a lot of dust because there's obviously a new standard expansion coming out. What would be your recommendation for something that's either just like mostly commons or that is close enough to the standard that they probably have a lot of the cards for if they wanted to dip their toe in?
Yeah, really great question. Disco is usually pretty cheap. Discard Warlock, rather. Libram Paladin is a frequent one that a lot of people lean to. Treant Druid, Elemental Mage. A lot of these are more aggro-y.
The cheap decks usually are. Yeah.
Yeah. Boar Warlock might not be too bad right now because it relies on a lot of newer cards. Quasar Rogue is also really cheap.
Oh, don't encourage people to play that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it. It's my least favorite deck in the format. But it is cheap, and it is the premier combo deck right now.
It looks like the token Broxigar Demon Hunter is mostly recent cards for legendaries.
Yeah.
Or like Broxigar is currently in standard. Except for Final Showdown, the quest line, which I imagine is important. But
yeah, it's a very good deck. Also incredibly hard.
So maybe not to start.
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions to be made along the way, and your hand is very full. And so you have to try to figure out like hand balance issues plus ordering of cards and like when to go in and when not to when you're drawing all the cards. And it is a very good deck. I would say probably if the pilot is very good, it's probably the best deck in the format. But the deck is really hard, so there's not as many good players at it, which is nice.
It does look like you'd have to craft a Rana Thrillseeker and Patch as the pilot, and 2 copies of Philosophy are in all the lists that I'm seeing. So
Yeah.
that's still a pretty decent dust expenditure. I think, especially if it's going to be a deck that's going to be hard to pick up if for somebody who's not necessarily.
Yeah, it's definitely not what I would recommend picking up, for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, if we're speaking low sample size and super expensive, don't start here. XL Highlander Thief Priest.
Excuse me?
What is this? And it's like 50% legendaries.
The Highlander decks are a lot of fun, but they are all very expensive because like 60 to 75% of the deck is like all legendaries.
My God, it's full of stars. Oh man, the Harvester of Envy. Oh man, that is, yeah, I terrorized people with that card. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is like oh my God, this is every legendary that would make Sidisi want to tear my throat out. Like, this is fantastic.
And one thing I would say too, if you're interested in seeing somebody pilot a deck and you're not sure if it's any good or if it's something that you should craft, I do definitely want to give a shout out to Schmoopy Daddy. He oftentimes will play viewer decks. I tried doing that in my MMR. I went from rank 16 to rank 3000 trying to do that. I went, yeah, this is not for me. Never doing this again. And so I got rid of deck requests for my channel. But Schmoopy regularly will play viewer decks. So no matter how bad the deck is, he will play it. So, definitely, if you want to see some of the wacky things you come up with, or you find a deck and you're like, I wonder if this is any good, asking Schmoopy to play it is always a good idea.
So Schmoopy, blame May.
Well, also true.
Oh, May, if you want to get on a revert crusade, you can work on Mindrender Elucia because she did nothing wrong. So,
but I will start lobbying Team 5 tomorrow.
Well, that would have been long before you started playing when they nerfed they demolished Mindrender Elucia. Like,
I'll be honest, it's really funny sometimes because like people in the wild community often have been playing this game for 12 years. And they'll be in a conversation with me and they'll be like, "Do you remember blah 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 card?" I was like, nope, never even heard of it. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I forget how young you are in terms of gameplay." Yeah,
Yeah.
I've only been playing for 2 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm learning all of this, so
Yeah.
It's the same experience that I have with when I'll talk to students about, something, and it'll turn out to have been like before they were born that this like
Oh, yeah.
song came out or something, or it'll be old, but I'll assume that they know about it. Like the kids these days don't know the Beatles because their parents weren't boomers.
Yeah.
And so
there was one time that my wife and I think this might have even before we had kids, I'm not sure. Like we were in like some sort of a store, and Maureen likes to chat with the people who work there, and made some sort of a reference to having to blow in an NES cartridge. And the girl was like 16 and looked at us like we had 3 heads. And I said, Maureen, she doesn't know what that means. Like, we are old and you are aging yourself right in front of this poor girl that you're giving your references to. But yeah, mine Render Lucia, both originally when it first got released, cost 2 mana, not 3. And it used to just swap hands with your opponent.
oh,
Yeah, so you would effectively use up your hand. It would swap hands with your opponent until your next turn. So like originally it was like a control thing where you would basically play it, take whatever it was that they were going to do to you out of their hands. So they didn't, and then they could also do the same to you. It eventually got to the point where it became an aggro tool, and the Shadow Priest would just dump their hands entirely and then swap and then play Elucia, swap hands with you. You'd end up with an empty hand, and they would play out your whole hand and then give it back to you after the turn.
I will say, constantly playing. You mentioned Shadow Priest. I play a lot of Shadow Priest still, and I will say the one card I miss from Standard, and what really keeps me going back to Wild, is Amanthul. I miss Amanthul. Wish we had that in Standard.
Amanthul is the greatest card because he was good in every priest deck. He was good in control. Turned out he was great in aggro and just anything.
Oh man,
you can do whatever you want. The only thing that Amanthul can't do is heal you directly immediately.
It was really funny in my THL match this last week, because I play in all the series, but it was a Standard match, and my opponent was playing Egg Warrior, and I randomly generated a Titan, Titanesque Osk, or Titan, whatever the
Titanographer Usk.
Yes.
Oh god.
There it is.
Why do I know that?
For those who don't know what that card is, because most people probably wouldn't play it, it's a 6 mana. I believe it's a mage.
Yeah, it's a mage. It's a mage minion because it's bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and it gets a random Titan ability. Well, I got the delete 2 minions from Amanthul, and so I deleted both of their 2020 Kaloses, and I ended up winning the game. I was playing, I want to say I was playing Control Priest in that game. But it was the funniest thing to me, because I was like, man, I really wish we had Amanthul in Standard. Like, can we just add him to core? That would be nice.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, the thing that I'm enjoying about WoW is having access to Shard of the Naru again, because I've been mourning that for 2 years. So,
oh man,
and
can you imagine?
Standard would just be solved if we had Shard of the Naru back. I'm just convinced of it. So
agreed. Deal with Ziliax, and that would have been so nice.
Yeah,
I probably would have never swapped back to Wild.
You want to play Egg of Kalos? No, you don't. Like.
Yeah, Shard to core. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, we had it in core for a while. It was good, and it was. And then they decided to get rid of it for no good reason. Give us a reason to play Priest. Be able to silence the opponent's board. There you go. We don't need everybody to do it. Just Priest. Just a good class. Anyhow, anything else before we wrap up, or should we? Because we do want to let these people go and let them have a chance to try some of these wild decks. I think so.
Yeah, no. I think we've talked about a lot of things. I guess the big thing that I would emphasize for anybody that's newly coming over to the wild format is really be patient with yourself. I've seen a lot of people talking recently high legend standard players coming over to Wild, including like folks like No Hands Gamer, who take a look at the Wild format and they're like, wow, this is a lot different. There is a little bit of a learning curve, so give yourself a little bit of a grace period as you learn how the decks interact, what the play patterns look like, as you begin to understand the lethality, and know that, in the Wild community, there is a pretty large group of us who are, willing and waiting with open arms to help educate or to help you acclimate to the format if it's something that you really want to do.
And it's worth giving a try, and just don't expect to try to make it standard. And some of the skills don't necessarily transfer, but it's also like learning. You're playing a different game, but in the same client with with the same cards that look the same, but sometimes behave very differently. So we have many folks who'd like to thank. Check out the thanks section on the website at coinconcede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support the show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats at our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at CoinConcede. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@CoinConcede. And if you would like some CC swag, head on over to your shop at shop.coinconcede.com, which I got working this past week again by accident. So you could actually go to shop.coinconcede.com, and you no longer need to go hunt for the URL in the show notes. So, huzzah! Hey, you're the guest, so we'll defer to you first for any coin concedes you might have.
Big shout out to everyone in the Hearthstone community who has been incredibly welcoming and supportive of me. I know that sometimes I can be a little much sometimes because I talk a lot and I don't always understand social cues because I'm autistic. But the community has been incredible from the top down and bottom up. So, really big shout out to everyone who takes a minute to be kind to new folks who want to learn and maybe don't know as much about the game and help us along the way. Like, your generosity, your patience, whether it's big or small, really goes a long way in building the community that we have, both within the Coin Concede community, but the larger Hearthstone community in general. So, big shout out to all of those folks, and to the Wild community in particular, folks who have really been helpful for me. Schmoopy has been very helpful, OTZ or OTZexia, and all of those who regularly come to my little stream over at twitch.tv/TaiwanKnife.
Megasa?
Well, I'd speak for both of us to Coin Concede, to you, Mae, for coming on. It's been such a pleasure to have you on, and I'm really glad that we could have your insight. We knew that we could not cover Wild without insight, and also, you are someone who is an important part of the community and who we wanted to hear from. It made sense since you are what got us on this kick in the first place.
This is your fault, so yes.
Yeah, it is all your fault. Anyone who I beat, or it's Mae's fault. And when I lost, because I have lost games, it's also Mae's fault. So, but let's see. I will also coin concede to my students who are graduating next week, because I work at a 6 through 12 school. I've got 8th graders and 12th graders at our graduation next week, which is luckily not on a Thursday, so I can still record at the normal time. They've worked really hard. Some of them are finishing up all their things. One of my 12th graders had like 3 timed essays and a major essay to complete this week because it was she was having a little trouble finishing up, and she came in today and she was like, I got all of it. It's all here. We can be done now. Not because she doesn't like the class. She loves the class, but I was like, all right, great, fantastic. You are done as soon as I grade it. she has done. But that, that's on me. So yeah, so congrats to both my students who are graduating, and also all students out there who either just have or are about to graduate from any level. It's a huge accomplishment.
Well, I am going to coin concede to Ben Brode, who, if you have not been playing for that long, he was the original designer of Hearthstone. And he then went on to go do Marvel Snap. And I don't know if he's still doing that or if he's doing something else, whatever. But he also, so he appeared on Brian Kibler's Commander show, Commander at Home, with so they make these custom cards for people in the Magic. I wish they would do this in Hearthstone. It would be pretty cool, actually. But they make these custom cards for creators in the Magic community or people adjacent. And they made one for him called the Snapstone Wielder, which I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. Long story short, it allows it. You start your deck with no lands, and then you get to basically play with a Hearthstone mana system. So you just get a mana crystal every turn, and then you can only use those on your turns because you want mana on your opponent's turn. You're on your own. Who wants instant speed interaction? It says that on the card. So I'm going to share this on the stream for those of you who are watching, and for those of you not, then you'll have to catch this on YouTube. He made a custom deck with Magic cards that are all reskinned with either Hearthstone or Marvel Snap art. Like, the names of the cards are either partially or wholly also cards in either Marvel Snap or Hearthstone. And it is like, he's like Fireball. He's changed the colors of the cards, so he has like a warrior frame on it because it's a red card in Magic. So he used a warrior frame, which is red, and then he replaced the mana cost with the mana cost from Magic and retemplated all the cards to Hearthstone or Marvel Snap template. And he said it took him 6 months to do it. He put up a website which is effectively a link to just the deck list. It is legitimately a work of art. And it is, if you have any knowledge of Magic, and like seeing how he took all these Hearthstone cards and turned them into Magic cards is absolutely incredible. Like, even to the fact where he has like the card type in the spell school on the bottom of the Hearthstone card. So instead of like Holy or Shadow, it has instant for counterspell because it's a instant in that. It's absolutely amazing. So the episode was fun to watch too, even if you don't really get Magic. It's Ben Brode and Kibler just making fun of each other for an hour and a half. You'll enjoy it. Absolutely, like, worth checking out. It's very, very cool what he did there. But yeah, so that's gonna do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and don't play into objection. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this time. I choose death.